never thought my life would change because of a cardiologist appointment. My grandmother, Betty, 83 years old and absolutely relentless, decided that my love life was in critical condition. She literally told me I needed a heart transplant when it came to romance. 3 weeks later, I'm sitting across from Dr. Lauren Mitchell at an Italian restaurant, wondering how my life became a rom-com. And honestly, the worst part is, it's working. Leave a comment telling me which city you're listening from so I can see how far this beautiful story is reaching, and take the chance to subscribe to the channel, helping me reach 3,000 subscribers. It was a Tuesday afternoon in September 2026 when my world tilted sideways. I was sitting in my apartment in Manhattan, scrolling through work emails, when my phone buzzed with a FaceTime call from my grandmother. Betty Chen had this uncanny ability to call at the exact moment I was least prepared for conversation. "Eleanor, I'm at the cardiologist," she announced, her face filling my screen with that mischievous grin I'd learned to fear. "You need to come with me next time. Your heart probably needs checking too." "Grandma, I'm 32 and healthy," I laughed, not looking up from my laptop. "Healthy? You haven't been on a date in 2 years. That's a medical emergency." She adjusted her glasses, and I could see the waiting room behind her. "Dr. Mitchell is wonderful, very smart, very single, very—" I hung up. I actually hung up on my grandmother, but I should have known better. Betty Chen didn't accept defeat. She was the woman who'd convinced my parents to move to America in 1985 with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. A hung-up phone call wasn't going to stop her. 3 days later, I received a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Eleanor. Your grandmother gave me your contact. She mentioned you might enjoy coffee sometime. No pressure. Dr. Lauren Mitchell." I stared at that message for a full 5 minutes. The audacity. The absolute nerve. But also, my grandmother had actually done it. She'd orchestrated a blind date without my consent, and somehow made it seem like the doctor's idea. I had to respect the strategy, even as I wanted to strangle her. I texted back, "Did my grandmother threaten your medical license?" The response came immediately. She threatened to stop coming to appointments and tell all her friends I was incompetent. "I'm choosing the path of least resistance. Coffee tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Brewhaven on 5th. Despite every rational part of my brain screaming that this was a disaster waiting to happen, I found myself typing, "Fine, but if this is weird, I'm blaming her. Deal. I'll bring a fire extinguisher for the awkwardness." I laughed out loud. Actual, genuine laughter. Maybe this wouldn't be a complete catastrophe. The next morning, I changed outfits 4 times. 4 times. I settled on dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater, and boots. Casual but put together. I told myself it was just coffee. Meaningless coffee with a stranger my grandmother had basically blackmailed into meeting me. Nothing to be nervous about. Brewhaven was packed when I arrived at 1:55 p.m. I spotted her immediately. Tall, with shoulder-length dark hair, and the kind of effortless confidence that comes from years of saving lives. She was wearing a navy blazer over a white shirt, and she was reading a book. An actual physical book. In 2026, when everyone read on tablets. "Eleanor?" She stood up, extending her hand with a warm smile. "Dr. Mitchell," I said, shaking it, trying to ignore the small electric shock that ran through my palm. "Lauren, please. Dr. Mitchell is what your grandmother calls me, and it makes me feel like I'm about to be scolded." She gestured to the seat across from her. "I ordered you a cappuccino. Your grandmother mentioned you always get cappuccino. I hope that's not too presumptuous." "She told you my coffee order. She told me your coffee order, your favorite restaurant, that you work in graphic design, that you broke up with someone named David 2 years ago because he didn't appreciate your art, and that you have a cat named Picasso." Lauren's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Your grandmother is thorough." I buried my face in my hands, mortified. "I'm so sorry. She's amazing, brilliant, a force of nature." Lauren leaned forward conspiratorially. "She's my favorite patient. She comes in for her checkups and spends 45 minutes telling me about her granddaughter who's too smart for her own good and needs someone who can keep up." Despite the embarrassment, I smiled. "She really said that?" "Word for word. Also, she showed me your Instagram. Your design work is incredible, by the way. That rebrand you did for that nonprofit. Chef's kiss." We talked for 3 hours. 3 hours that turned into dinner because neither of us wanted to leave. Lauren told me about her journey to becoming a cardiologist, how she'd grown up in Boston with 2 engineer parents who expected her to follow suit, but she'd always been drawn to medicine. She told me about the moment she realized she wanted to specialize in cardiology. A patient who'd survived a heart attack came back to thank her, and the gratitude in his eyes had changed everything. I told her about my career, how I'd started as a freelancer and built my own design agency, how I loved the creative problem-solving but sometimes missed the human connection of working in an office. I told her about Picasso, my rescue cat who had 3 legs and the attitude of a tiny dictator. "I want to meet this 3-legged dictator," Lauren said as we walked out of the restaurant into the cool September evening. "That can be arranged," I replied, and I meant it. For 2 weeks, everything was perfect. We had coffee dates that turned into lunch dates. We had dinner at that Italian place my grandmother had probably recommended to Lauren. We had a movie night at my apartment, where Picasso decided to sit directly on Lauren's lap the entire time, which I took as a sign of approval. Then my grandmother decided to take things to the next level. It was October 3rd, a Friday evening, when Lauren and I were having dinner at her place, a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn Heights with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. We were laughing about something ridiculous when my phone rang. Betty. Of course it was Betty. "Hi, Grandma," I answered, stepping into the kitchen to take the call. "Eleanor, I'm coming to the city tomorrow. I want to take you and Dr. Mitchell to brunch. There's a new place in the West Village that has the most wonderful—" "Grandma, no. Absolutely not." "What do you mean, no?" "I'm your grandmother. I say yes, and you say yes. That's not how this works. You can't just insert yourself into my relationship." "Relationship?" I could hear the smile in her voice. "So it is a relationship?" I'd walked right into that trap. We're seeing where things go." "Exactly. And I want to be part of seeing where things go. I'll be there at 11. Balthazar. Make a reservation." She hung up before I could protest further. When I returned to the living room, Lauren took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "Your grandmother?" "She's coming to brunch tomorrow. She's invited herself to our date." To my surprise, Lauren laughed. "That's actually kind of wonderful. I like your grandmother." "You won't like her when she's interrogating you about your intentions." "My intentions are good," Lauren said, pulling me onto the couch next to her. "I like you, Eleanor. I like you a lot. I'm not afraid of your grandmother." But she should have been. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that makes you want to stay in bed. Instead, I was getting ready for what I was certain would be the most mortifying brunch of my life. I chose a burgundy dress and tried to look like I had my life together, which was difficult when I was internally screaming. Balthazar was packed, as it always was on Saturday mornings. We arrived at 11:15. I'd deliberately been late, hoping my grandmother would get impatient and leave. But there she was, sitting at a prime table by the window, wearing a red coat and looking absolutely delighted with herself. "There you are." Betty stood up and embraced me, then turned to Lauren with a knowing smile. "Dr. Mitchell, You look lovely. I'm Betty, Eleanor's grandmother. I'm the one who orchestrated this whole situation, so you can thank me for your happiness." Lauren shot me an amused glance. "I absolutely will, Betty. Thank you for your excellent judgment." My grandmother beamed. "I have excellent judgment about many things. For instance, I can tell you two are very good together. Eleanor, you're smiling more than you have in years. Dr. Mitchell, you keep looking at Eleanor like she hung the moon." "Grandma," I said through gritted teeth, picking up the menu with more force than necessary. But the brunch wasn't a disaster. It was actually nice. My grandmother told stories about my family that I'd never heard before. About my grandfather, who'd been a poet and a dreamer. About how she'd met him at a university library in Shanghai. She asked Lauren thoughtful questions about her work, about her family, about her dreams. And Lauren answered with genuine warmth, asking my grandmother about her life, her experiences, her perspective on love and relationships. "You know what I've learned in 83 years?" Betty said, sipping her mimosa. "Love isn't something you find by accident. It's something you recognize when you see it. Eleanor's mother spent so long looking for the perfect person that she almost missed her father. I wasn't going to let Eleanor make the same mistake." "Grandma," I started, but Lauren squeezed my hand under the table. "Your grandmother is wise," Lauren said softly. After brunch, my grandmother hugged us both goodbye and promised not to interfere anymore, which we both knew was a lie. But as I watched her disappear into a taxi, I realized something. She'd been right. Not about the setup. That was still wildly inappropriate. But about the outcome. I had found something real with Lauren. Something that felt like it could actually last. That evening, Lauren and I went to a gallery opening in Chelsea. We walked through the white-walled space, looking at abstract paintings and talking about art and life and everything in between. At one point, we stopped in front of a massive canvas of intertwining colors, reds and golds and blues all flowing together. "That's us," Lauren said, pointing at it. "Chaotic and confusing," I teased. "Beautiful and complex," she corrected, taking my hand. "Your grandmother knew what she was doing, you know. She saw something in me and she saw something in you, and she knew we'd fit. She's a meddling matchmaker." "She's a romantic," Lauren said. "And so am I. Is that a problem?" I looked at her, really looked at her, standing in front of that painting, with the gallery lights reflecting in her eyes, with my hand in hers. "No," I said. "It's not a problem at all." October was turning into November, and things were going so well that I should have known something was going to go wrong. That's how life works, isn't it? The moment you think you've figured it out, the universe decides to throw you a curveball. The curveball came in the form of David. David Chen, no relation to my grandmother, though wouldn't that have been a fun coincidence, was my ex-boyfriend. We'd dated for 3 years, broken up 2 years ago, and had managed to maintain a cordial distance ever since. He worked in finance, lived on the Upper West Side, and had moved on to dating a yoga instructor named Sienna. I ran into him at a coffee shop on November 2nd. Literally ran into him. I wasn't looking where I was going, and I walked right into his chest. "Eleanor, hi." He steadied me, and I looked up to see his familiar face, his familiar smile. "How have you been?" "Good," I said, trying to extract myself from the situation. "Really good, actually." "Yeah? You look happy." "That's great." He paused, and I could see him debating whether to say something. "I heard through the grapevine that you're seeing someone. A doctor?" Of course he'd heard. New York is a small town masquerading as a big city. Yes, I said carefully. Her name is Lauren. That's great, Eleanor. Really. I'm glad you found someone. And he meant it. I could tell by his tone. But then he added, I just want you to know, if things don't work out, I'm always here. We had something special, you know. Sometimes people come back around. I felt a flash of anger. David, we broke up because you didn't support my career. You thought I should get a real job instead of freelancing. You made me feel small. I know, and I regret that. I've changed. Sienna actually encouraged me to think about it, and she was right. I was wrong. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me wanted to rewind to when things were easy with David, before the complications, before the arguments about my career choices. But then I thought about Lauren, how she'd asked to see my portfolio on our second date, how she'd helped me brainstorm ideas for a new client, how she made me feel like my work mattered. I'm happy for you, I told David. But I'm also happy with Lauren. And I don't think we should be in contact anymore. It's not fair to any of us. I left the coffee shop feeling shaken. I didn't tell Lauren about the encounter. I told myself it was because it was nothing, because it didn't matter. But deep down, I knew I was being a coward. The truth came out 3 days later, on November 5th, when my grandmother called me in a panic. Eleanor, I just ran into David at the grocery store, and he told me he saw you, and he said he wanted to get back together with you. Is this true? Are you leaving Dr. Mitchell? Grandma, no. I'm not leaving Lauren. David was just being nostalgic. Then why didn't you tell Dr. Mitchell about seeing him? Silence. Because I hadn't told her. And now my grandmother knew, which meant the secret was out. I called Lauren immediately. We need to talk. We met at a park near her office, sitting on a bench overlooking the Hudson River. The November wind was cold, and I pulled my jacket tighter around myself. I ran into David last week, I said without preamble, at a coffee shop. He said he wanted to get back together. I said no, but I didn't tell you, and I'm sorry. Lauren was quiet for a long moment. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was embarrassed. Because I didn't want you to think I had any lingering feelings for him. Because I was being stupid. Do you have lingering feelings for him? No, I said immediately. Not at all. He represented a version of myself that I'm not anymore. When I was with him, I was smaller. I made myself smaller to fit into his idea of what I should be. With you, I feel like I can be exactly who I am. Lauren took my hand. I trust you, Eleanor. But I need you to trust me too. If something happens, if something makes you uncertain, I need you to tell me. We can't build something real if we're keeping secrets. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just be honest. Can you do that? Yes, I said. I promise. We sat there for a while, watching the river flow past, and I felt something shift between us. Not away from each other, but deeper into each other. The kind of shift that happens when you choose honesty over comfort, when you choose vulnerability over protection. That evening, I called my grandmother. Grandma, I need you to stop meddling. I'm not meddling, You are. You set me up without my permission, you showed up at my dates, you interrogated Lauren, and now you're gossiping with my ex-boyfriend. I love you, but you need to let me live my own life. There was a pause. Then, you're right. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I wanted you to be happy. I saw what I thought was the answer, and I pushed. I know, and I am happy. But I need to get there on my own terms. Can you respect that? Yes, she said quietly. I can, but I'm still very proud of you and Dr. Mitchell. You two are good together. I smiled despite myself. Thanks, Grandma. November turned into December, and with it came the holiday season. Lauren and I had been together for almost 4 months, and things had settled into a comfortable rhythm. We had our routines: Sunday morning coffee, Wednesday night dinners, Friday night movies with Picasso as our third wheel. But there was something missing. Something that neither of us had addressed because we were both afraid of jinxing it. On December 10th, Lauren came to my apartment looking worried. I was working on a design project, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. What's going on? I asked, closing my laptop. I got offered a job, she said, sitting down heavily on the couch. At Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. It's a research position. It's everything I've been working toward. My heart sank. Oh. It's a 2-year contract, starting in January. Lauren, I know this is terrible timing, but I can't turn this down. This is my dream, Eleanor. This is the research I've wanted to do for years. I felt tears prickling at my eyes, which made me angry at myself. I'd known this could happen. Long-distance relationships are hard. People have careers. People have dreams that don't always align. You should take it, I said, my voice tight. Just like that? You're not going to fight for us? How can I fight for us when you're moving to Baltimore? I stood up, pacing to the window. I have my business here. My clients are here. My life is here. And I have my career, Lauren said quietly. I'm not asking you to move. I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm just asking if we can try to make this work. Can we? I turned to face her. Long-distance relationships are hard, Lauren. They're really hard, and I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. Then don't be strong, she said, standing up and coming toward me. Be honest. Tell me what you're actually afraid of. I wanted to say I was afraid of losing her. I wanted to say I was afraid that distance would turn into indifference, that the spark we had would fade when we weren't in the same room. I wanted to say that I'd finally found something real, and the universe was taking it away. Instead, I said, I'm afraid that you'll realize you don't need me, that you'll build this amazing life in Baltimore, and I'll just be the girl you used to date in New York. Lauren pulled me into her arms. That's not going to happen. Eleanor, you're not someone I'm going to forget about. You're someone I'm building a life with. It might not look the way we planned, but it's still a life we're building together. How can you be so sure? Because I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. I know that sounds crazy. We've only been together 4 months, but I do. And I'm not going to Baltimore to run away from you. I'm going because I need to do this, and I need you to support me the same way I support you. I pulled back and looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized she was right. I'd been so afraid of losing her that I'd almost pushed her away. But love isn't about holding on so tight that you suffocate someone. It's about letting them be who they need to be and choosing to stand beside them anyway. Okay, I said. Okay, we'll make it work. Long distance, visits, video calls, whatever it takes. Yeah? Yeah, I love you too, by the way. I probably should have said that earlier, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Lauren Mitchell, and I'm not going to let you move to Baltimore without knowing that. She kissed me then, and it felt like a promise, like a commitment, like the beginning of something that was going to last. December 15th, 2026. 2 weeks before Lauren's move to Baltimore. We decided to do something we'd been putting off. We decided to tell our families officially. not as Eleanor's grandmother's setup, but as a real couple with real plans for the future. My parents came into the city from Connecticut, and Lauren's parents drove down from Boston. We all met at that Italian restaurant where Lauren and I had gone on our first real date, the one that had turned into dinner without us planning it. My mother, Susan, was immediately charmed by Lauren. My father, Robert, asked her about her research and actually listened to the answer. But the real moment came when my grandmother arrived. Betty took one look at us sitting together, holding hands under the table, and her eyes filled with tears. "I knew it," she said, sitting down and pulling out a tissue. "I knew from the moment I met Dr. Mitchell that she was the one." "Grandma, you orchestrated the entire thing," I reminded her gently. "Yes, but I had faith. That's different from knowing. Knowing is when you see it happen." Lauren's mother, Patricia, smiled warmly. "Betty told us all about how she set you two up. We think it's wonderful, and we're so glad Eleanor is part of Lauren's life. She makes her happy." "She does," Lauren agreed, squeezing my hand. Over dinner, we told them about the Baltimore job, about our plan to make long-distance work. I expected resistance, expected someone to say it was too soon, too risky, too complicated. But instead, my father raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, "and to love that's strong enough to survive distance." We clinked glasses, and I caught my grandmother's eye. She winked at me, that same mischievous wink she'd given me over FaceTime when she'd first started scheming. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, she'd known all along that this would work out. On December 20th, I drove Lauren to the airport. It was her last trip to New York before the move. She was going back to Boston for Christmas, and then to Baltimore in January. We sat in the car in the departures lane, neither of us wanting to say goodbye. "This isn't goodbye," Lauren said, reading my mind. "This is see you in 2 weeks. And then it's see you in 4 weeks. And then it's I'm moving back to New York because my girlfriend's business is here and I can research anywhere." "Is that what's going to happen?" I asked hopefully. "I don't know yet, but I know that we're going to figure it out. Together." She kissed me, and I memorized the feeling of it, the softness of her lips, the warmth of her hand on my cheek, the way she smelled like the vanilla perfume she always wore. "I love you," I said. "I love you too. Now go home before you make me cry in the airport." I drove home through the snowy streets of Manhattan, past the holiday decorations and the crowds of last-minute shoppers, and I thought about how my life had changed in 4 months. How a grandmother's meddling had turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. How a blind date that I'd dreaded had become the foundation of my future. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, I was at my parents' house in Connecticut when my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Merry Christmas. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for being brave enough to love me even when it was scary. You're my favorite person. Also, your grandmother called me and told me she's planning our wedding. I told her to wait at least a year. She said, 'Fine, but I'm already looking at venues.' I think we're stuck with her." I laughed so hard I cried. Then I texted back, "She's the worst. Also, I love you. Also, maybe don't discourage her too much. I kind of want to marry you." The response came immediately. "Good, because I kind of want to marry you too." I looked out the window at the snow falling softly on the Connecticut countryside, and I thought about how life works in mysterious ways. How sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. How a grandmother's meddling, a cardiologist's sense of humor, and a graphic designer's willingness to take a chance could create something beautiful. My grandmother had been right all along. She'd seen something in Lauren, and she'd seen something in me, and she'd known we'd fit. Not because she was magical or psychic, but because she understood that love isn't something you find by accident. It's something you recognize when you see it, and then you have to be brave enough to reach for it. And I had been brave. I'd gone on that blind date even though I didn't want to. I'd let myself fall in love, even though I was scared. I'd chosen honesty over comfort, vulnerability over protection, and it had led me here, to a woman who made me laugh, who supported my dreams, who loved me exactly as I was. As I sat in my childhood home, surrounded by family and warmth and the smell of my mother's famous Christmas cookies, I texted Lauren one more time. Merry Christmas. I can't wait to see you in 2 weeks. I can't wait to build a life with you. I can't wait for all of it. And for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I was excited about it. I was ready for it. I was ready for Lauren, for long distance, for whatever came next. Because sometimes, when you least expect it, your grandmother sets you up on a blind date with a cardiologist, and she changes your entire life. And sometimes, that's the best thing that could ever happen to you. Thank you so much for listening to Eleanor and Lauren's story until the very end. I hope their journey touched your heart and reminded you of something important. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Don't be afraid to take chances on love, even when it scares you. Even when it comes wrapped in your grandmother's meddling and good intentions. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue bringing these beautiful, real human stories to your life. Leave a comment below telling me which city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled and connect with all of you. May you all be blessed with love that's brave, honest, and true. Thank you for being here.